Hi, everyone. I hope that wherever you are, you're well and safe. I know that the last 24 hours have been tough for many of us in this region. So if you're joining us today, please know that we are all feeling the pain and the sadness of what Lebanon has experienced, and we're grateful for your presence. My name is Marilyn. I'm the CEO and founder of Cosmic Centaurs. We are a leadership and organizational development firm. And today you're joining us for the 7th annual Cosmic Conference, which is a 3-week virtual conference that started on March 25th and is ongoing until the end of next week, April 17th. Our conference is titled Grounded and Limitless, Leading Organizations That Survive and Thrive. And through this conference, we're hoping to support leaders as they manage prolonged uncertainty. At its core, the idea of being both grounded and limitless is about staying clear-eyed about reality, but continuing to build what is possible. And we're bringing together more than 20 leaders, experts, and academics to make sense of what leadership requires in moments like these across 3 themes: endure, adapt, and thrive. Today, you're tuning in during week 2, which is about adapting. It focuses on how organizations institutionalize creativity, build strong systems, strengthen their relationships, and sense and adapt to emerging shifts across industries. Our speaker, Roland Daher, who I'm going to introduce in just a minute, and myself would love for you to actively participate in this session. Please share your reactions, your reflections, your questions, your experiences, and I'll make sure that we have time to answer at least a few of them. If you find value in this session and want to give back, there are 2 ways that you can do that. We published an article today listing more than, I think, 10 or 12 different organizations in Lebanon that you can donate to. We will drop the link in the chat. If you are able to spare a few dollars this month, I'm sure it'll go a long way. And if time is what you have available, we're conducting research to capture how leaders in our region are navigating uncertainty, because we believe that we have something to teach the rest of the world. Our team will also put a link in the chat to our Leading in the Arab World survey. It takes 4 minutes and it would mean the world to us. Now, on to today's session, Trust and Tension, Building Leadership Teams That Operate as One. I'm really pleased to welcome Roland to our conversation. Roland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Marilyn. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Let me quickly introduce you. Roland's the CEO of AstroLabs, which is a leading platform founded to simplify and accelerate market entry and expansion into the Gulf. Fun fact, Cosmic Centaurs is an AstroLabs company, so we started our journey with you guys almost 6 years ago now. AstroLabs has grown into a powerhouse supporting more than 1,800 companies coming from 50 countries and 37 industries, from startups to global enterprises. And I think, if I may speak on your behalf, Roland, that having worked with you now for a while, what really defines your leadership is the belief that great businesses are not just about great markets, but they're built through people and creating environments where talent can scale, learning is continuous, and performance and purpose go hand in hand. We will get to talk about all of that, but before we do, I just want to check in with you. How have you been holding up over the past few weeks? And how do you feel about everything that's happening as both a person and a leader?
Thanks, Marilyn. It's great to be with you. How I've been, in the grander scheme of things, okay. Thankful that the team, their families, everyone we know is safe first. Yeah. And that despite the insanity around us, people are showing up and they're committed, and we're all doing our best. When all of this started a month or so ago, I had an all hands with the team, and I told them there are 3 type of events or inputs. There's what we can't control, there's what we can influence, and there's what we can control. We spend absolutely no time on what we cannot control. We spend reasonable time on what we can influence. But then we put all of our time and energy and effort on what we can control. And honestly, that's what we've been doing since we're doing okay, showing up every morning, obsessing about what we can control, doing our best with what we can influence, and trying not to get distracted by all the unfortunate things that we cannot control.
Absolutely. I think that's a very wise way, and potentially the only way of staying through what is going on. Because otherwise we can get lost in thinking about or reading about or doom scrolling about what is happening around us. So a very good, a very good position to be taking. All right, so let's introduce today's topic. I'm a firm believer, and now you're a firm believer too, that behind every organization's performance is something deeper, a system that holds everything together, a leadership team that is united around the collective outcome and drives things forward, but also the individual choices that leaders make every day. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because I think that the reason why we really wanted to bring this topic to life is, of course you can be a hero and drive your organization through this time, but you can't really build a company that's going to take advantage of the moment, try to gain new ground, new competitive advantage, and emerge from this stronger if you don't have a strong leadership team around you and a great system. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to explore together today. And you started us off by talking about this, actually, which is what is within your control. If I were to ask, you as a leader today, Roland, what is within your control that you are focusing on?
So you can look at it from the three levels that you mentioned: the system, the leadership team, and you as a leader. What is in our control is how we show up every day. What do we do when we show up, and how we do it? So are we showing up calm, clear-minded, clear, consistent? Are we communicating enough to people about the state of affairs, what is happening, what is on our mind? Are we turning that clarity into easy to grasp objectives for the short term that translate into people's definition of success? Are we reconvening regularly, consistently, calmly to review how are we doing against all of these? All of those small things, they are in your control. And the nice thing about them, as boring and simple as they can sound, and my old view about these boring things, they work. They work individually, but then they compound. And when they compound, they transform the organization. And especially in times like that, you feel the difference. I am thankful, and in some place I feel guilty to say it. It's been easier to lead AstroLabs and the team through the last 6 weeks than it was to do it in peacetime, when business was literally booming and everything was very easy and smooth. And that tells you a lot about what these small things that are fully in your control can do to you and to your organization. And I'm happy to talk more about any of them.
Yeah, I want to double click on that, because actually what shifted for you is that we've started working a year ago almost together, but I'm sure the realization also came when AstroLabs changed scales, right? And you had to now build a system to accommodate this wonderfully growing company, as you said, where everything was going well. But you started to see that if you didn't put in place more bones to the organization, everything was going well today, but maybe in the future it wouldn't be the case. And you spoke about some of these very boring things that you do, but I'd love for you to double click on that. What has shifted in the last year plus in how AstroLabs operates, and that has allowed you to give us this wonderful statement in saying that in some ways wartime has become so much easier because we invested in these things during peacetime?
Yeah, maybe let me start by taking us back to when this whole stream of work started. When did I feel like something has to change? It happened when I personally was stretched too thin, and I felt the limit of what I and the company as it was can do the old way. And just to be fair to myself and everyone, this is what built the company. The sheer willpower and the founder mode, and we can make anything happen. And our logo, our slogan is "Make it happen," and we stand by it. It's what allowed us to get to that point. But then beyond a certain point and at a certain scale, this cannot take you further. And I felt that when the disconnect between what I knew needed to happen and what was happening kept growing, and the frustration both inside of me and throughout the system kept growing. And although we knew what we knew, or thought we knew, thought that everyone knew the same definition of what we need to do, and although we had good people, we always have amazing people, well-intentioned, capable of doing anything. We had all the components, but it was not working like it should have been working. So this is when we started working together. And if I were to summarize what are the main steps that we followed since, we went back all the way to, are we sure that what is so clear in your mind and is so obvious to you is what the company knows and understands and remembers? And this is where we reworked or redefined our strategy. And we did not come up with a new strategy, but we just took the discipline of just saying, what is it? What is this company about? Who does it serve? Who does it not serve? What is winning for the next 2 to 3 years? Where are you investing resources? Where are you not investing resources? And just documenting that in one place and making sure that the entire company knows it. So that was a building block. And I remember that within 1 or 2 all hands, from actually communicating the strategy and remaining disciplined in communication, we moved from lack of clarity being one of the biggest pain points company-wide into an 87+%. Yes, we're clear. We know what's happening. We're excited. We believe. Let's do it. So that was a massive unlocker. So clarity first. But then if you're just clear and you have amazing ideas and beautiful plans and you don't put them into execution, it's useless. So taking that clarity and transforming it into outcomes that are owned clearly by people who are capable to deliver on them, who have what it takes to deliver on them, both from their capabilities to their teams, to their authority, to the tech, to everything, all the resources needed for someone to actually execute on an outcome they need. And then that was a component of, okay, this is not one person executing, it's a plan that touches everyone in the organization. And this is what the definition of success looks like, from individual to team to unit to company level. Great, that's part 2. The biggest component that was missing is the discipline of coming back to them through clearly established cadences, from the weekly meeting of the leadership team to the bi-weekly performance review to the monthly readout to the quarterly readout and planning to the mid-year replanning to the yearly planning. All of that, we used to just move through the motion of things. It used to come because now is the time to talk about it, but it was not this clearly articulated and pre-planned. And that has been an unlocker, because the combination of clarity, accountability, and predictability and the cadence combined just creates, especially when you have amazing people. So none of that would work if you don't have the right people in the right seats, which we're lucky to have. But when you combine them together, magic happens. And this is what is allowing us today to perform much better than we were performing 6 months ago, when the environment was fundamentally different. We're delivering more outcomes today than what we were delivering 6 months ago. And I'm not doing most of the work, when I used to feel like I am involved in everything in the company. And if I don't get involved, it will stop. And that has been also a big return on all the work that we have done. And I know it's the right thing.
Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And, you know, you and I always talk about how these things are not really that impressive when you talk about them. As in, it sounds like we should have been, everybody is probably doing these things. And I always tell you how every company we work with, no matter how big or small, no matter how successful, actually, it's really about getting basics right. And I'm very grateful that you bring these examples. And I think, you know, we always say a company has two budgets that they manage: the dollars, which if you're well managed, you tend to have a sense of where the dollars are going, and then time. And you know, all these examples that you gave us around the cadence, just returning to things, communicating them again, coming back to seeing their progress.
To those following who might be at a much smaller scale, I remember the time when it was me, Mohammed Makki, Louis Lebbos, the founders, and 2-3 people. You know, you do a lot of that without calling it something. You're sitting together in the same room. You're by default in a cadence. You're by default over communicating. You're already super switched on the same wavelength. So when you're small, this works, especially with the right founding teams. It works without engineering. The problem is when you start bringing people and all of a sudden you're 100 and you're onboarding 10 or 15 every quarter, and things are changing as you go. And many of these things are in some people's minds. It can't scale. This is when chaos starts scaling. You cannot scale energy. You cannot scale telepathy, right? The only thing that scales is clarity and accountability and cadences. Everything else will lead to fires that you end up spending most of your time putting off instead of focusing on building the business.
Beautiful. And Roland, what was a day or a moment where you started feeling, because of course, when you put in place a system, we always tell this, we had a whole conference on systems thinking last year, and we were saying that to everyone that just because you made a change doesn't mean that you're going to see its impact immediately. You have to give time for the system to kind of do a couple of rotations before it gets there. But is there a day or a moment where you felt suddenly that the system was working?
Yes, I can give you one now in the crisis. When this whole regional situation unfortunately started, I asked the leadership team to convene, and we started planning for scenarios. You know, if this takes 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, what needs to happen? And I remember just me asking or presenting the ask. I was like, this is not going to happen. This is a lot of work. I was worrying about what it will take us to get that outcome done, that level of clarity done. And to my surprise, they just took their time and did the work, got together, figured it out. And then the first version that came to me was way above my expectations. Not because I was doubting their willingness and capability. It was just a hard ask that 6 months ago, something much smaller wouldn't have been shipped because everyone is busy, everyone is attending to 1 million thing. I need to be there playing the lead coordinator. And this time, I wasn't even in the rooms. I just asked people to do a big piece of work and then gave them time. I kept myself available if needed, had a couple of touch points in between. And then when we convened, it was just there. And the nice thing about it is that this is not my plan. This is theirs. And the nicer thing about it is that they didn't do it alone. They involved their team. So now the plan that sounds like this is the leadership teams or the CEO's response plan to whatever is happening, it's not. This is what everyone in the company, knowing the strategy, knowing the situation, knowing the inputs that we have, believes is what should happen next.
Absolutely. How beautiful. I remember the first time this happened in my team where something was produced that I didn't get involved in. I almost felt like I'd lost my job. On the one hand, I was really relieved. I was like, oh, how wonderful. This thing that we created now produces things that I'm proud of, that I don't have to do anything about. And at the same time, part of me was uncomfortable because I was like, and now what do I do? And there's a question from the audience here that asks, actually, what part of your role still feels uncomfortable in this new kind of setup?
So actually, it's what you just said, and we spoke about it earlier today. And especially when you've been in the founder seat, when you built things, moving from being the person who built stuff with their own hands. There was a point at AstroLabs where I touched or myself executed, back when I was COO, every single aspect of the organization. I used to issue the invoices myself and then go collect it, then sell a deal, then close it, then upsell it. That is the whole thing. So, and you kind of build your identity around, I'm the person who gets everything done. I built this. And then one day you need to wake up, and your job, if you touch any of this, you're failing at your job. So just imagine this identity evolution from your success is because you get things done into, if you get something done yourself, you're a horrible CEO. And this is the most uncomfortable part of my current mandate, is because I'm a problem solver by heart. I spot problems. I love to solve them. I am thrilled by the solutioning around a certain problem. And yet I know that I should not get involved. So this is the most uncomfortable part, is resisting the urge of getting involved in 1 million thing, because that's where you think your value is. And the world will set you up for that. And focusing on the 2 or 3 things that only you can do and are the unlockers of the company. And usually they don't show today. Usually it's a year's window or 2 years window.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this discomfort of both shifting your identity, but also shifting how you create value, is always something that we feel when we kind of step into a new phase, whether it's us personally or our organization as a whole. We have to learn to sit with some discomfort. And you spoke also about the discomfort of, how long it takes for the reward to return. That's something I to my leaders as well a lot about, because when you're a doer, your reward system is instantaneous, and now suddenly you have to do something for 2 years before a positive outcome emerges.
And part of making the system work is giving it space to form. And another aspect that is very hard for me, still today, to answer that question, is just seeing something broken and staying disciplined to say, I'm not going to fix it. That's somebody else's job, and hold that person accountable to fixing it their way. And then just challenging the mindset or the approach in some cases, but without taking ownership of it. It's very hard, because in your mind it's super easy, just like do it. But if you do it, and that's the problem. That's where I lost maybe a good 2 to 3 years window when I just still had the bandwidth and always have the energy. I'm thankful to just solve anything that comes to me. Unfortunately, when you do that, you end up feeling good because you solve stuff, but you're alienating the system. You did not create layers of capabilities around you and people who are able to own full parts of the machine. You created people who just depend on you because you forced them to, not because they don't want. You trained them to come to you, and Roland will solve it. And that was wrong. And that was one big thing that changed in the last year.
And I have one more question about the system, and then I want to talk also about the leadership team. But when it came to the system, as you were kind of, again, this was a long journey. It started more than a year ago. What did you feel sometimes was about to break as you were making this shift? Because again, what we're trying to do here today is show other leaders who might be going through this transition where the discomfort is going to lie, where things might break when you didn't expect them, and where you have to hold the fort, right, in a way. What did you feel almost broke? Where did you feel like the system resisted? I'm sure one of them was our dependence on Roland makes all the decisions and, like what's happening here. I'm sure that not everybody allowed this change to occur immediately. What would you name are some of the things where you had to hold the position long enough for the system to adapt?
This was one. Although many people, especially the leadership team, were very disciplined on not allowing it to happen. And I'm thankful to that. Another thing that I felt got very close to breaking was within the leadership team, specifically. When you commit as a leader to give the space for a new way of operating to take shape, there's discomfort in general that can build up because that's change, because the people's definition of their own worth is being challenged. The same way I said, my definition of worth was I was the problem solver. This applies to everyone. And now you're saying, no, your definition of impact is you can build a system and you can work horizontally and you do it in a disciplined and a predictable way. So that was challenging to people. And it was a big part of the work that we've done to help them navigate that change. And when you have leaders going through such an intense curve while being responsible of day-to-day duties, you could also expect some of that pressure to translate downward on their teams and on the duties that they ship. So you can expect operations to get a little bit shaky at some point because there's a new way of doing things that we all know down the line will make us 10 times better than today. But today feels that we're losing control. This framework of we know down the line is going to be 10 times better, but today it's collapsing applies to almost everything meaningful that you are doing. And it takes a lot of discipline and trust and good advisors and coaches around you, whether they're your colleague or whether they're someone like you, Marilyn, or other people, to just tell you it's okay, hold the course. Because you're tempted to give up at any point in time. It's like you're drowning and your default is to go back to your old ways, but you just need that one person to tell you, no, hold on, you're close, just don't give up.
Yeah, definitely. Holding the line is one of the hardest ones.
Yeah.
Roland, we're talking about your leadership team. I want to spend some time on this, because obviously we talked about shifting the organization from kind of a founder-driven spirit, which, by the way, is essential in the early days. If you were to try to build systems too early, you'd have a great bureaucracy, but no outcomes, right?
100%.
to a more system-driven one, and still we're not talking about bureaucracy, but just putting in the structures that the company needs to scale. But of course, the system is the organization, every person in it. But one of the most important systems, and I think one of the most important leverage points of a leader, is their leadership team. Because, again, this is something I always repeat to CEOs. One of your primary jobs is to be the manager of this one team, even though you have a lot of other things to do. But and so I remember in the early days, I introduced you to Loic, who, by the way, is going to be a speaker next week. He's the exiting global CEO at Mars Pet Care. And I was like, Roland, don't talk to me about this. Talk to Loic, because he's really one of the people who I've always admired his process for building and maintaining a strong leadership team. Yeah. And that's to say that no matter how big you are, and no matter how long a leadership team has been together, the being the gardener, being the person who takes care of the setup, the cadence, how we work together, how we create a collective outcome, that job is never over. So it's not that, someone was not doing well, so they had to fix their leadership team. I actually think that is the job forever, right? Yeah. And so one of the biggest things that we see, this is obviously well documented in Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, is the first thing you want to do is make sure that the team operates as one. Because oftentimes in leadership teams, we have group work, meaning we have a lot of smart, capable individuals doing well by their function, but not yet fully enabled. Sometimes, the CEO hasn't created that space, or it doesn't come naturally to us, not fully enabled to operate as one. So what does a team that does operate as one look like? Because that's what you have.
And that's what I did not have at one point. And going back to my discussion with Loic, one thing that I kept dearly since is honoring the past, but solving for the future. And his point was that as organizations evolve, everything evolves with them, including the leadership team. And one way to look at it, it was an aha moment to me at one point. The stage you are in as a company and the stage an individual member of the leadership team is at need to match. Meaning, are you a 0 to 1 company? It just came together and you're figuring out if you're solving a problem that can become a business. Are you a 1 to 10 company where there is a problem that could be something, but you're figuring out if it can be scalable? And are you a 10 to 100 company where you figure that first part is done, now you just need to scale it and turn it into a big business? A big aha moment to me was when I realized that I had a lot of 0 to 1 DNA in the leadership team, and people with insane ethics, commitment, intelligence, you name it, but that now are asked to build a system that scales. So that's one disconnect. Second is the point that you mentioned about teamwork versus group work. I also had an aha moment where I felt like my team was, if we use sports analogies, was a golf group. You have 5, 6 people, amazing golfers. They are playing. Each person does their best, and the score adds up. But they're not working as one team. It's just every person just smashing it. And to a certain extent, they don't care how the other person can improve, perform, etc., because they're just too focused on their own game. When you need a basketball team or a football team, where the score is the combined effort from the strategy to the game, to the fitness, to the execution of everyone. And this was also another big evolution on our leadership team level. So one, ensuring that the right people at the right stage of execution are in the right seats. And if they're not, either figuring out a way to get them there, knowing that it's very demanding in terms of coaching and time, and sometimes you don't have the time to do that. And in some cases, just part way in a very respectable and friendly, honorable way, because these are the people who got you to this point. But it's better for both of you to be in a different configuration. So that's how you solve having the right people at the right stage in the right place. Then working on the team. And the foundation, you mentioned Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. The foundation for a team working together, and I don't want to sound cliche, but that was another aha moment to me, although it's so stupid when you think of it. Trust. And I thought, and we thought, we had a foundation of trust. But the big aha moment was that harmony or the lack of conflict does not mean trust. And when you're building a company, you need a foundation of trust where conflict and disagreement can thrive in a very healthy way, so that people can end up aligning and executing properly as a team. Otherwise, what everyone is solving for is just minimizing the discomfort of conflict. And when you're minimizing the discomfort of conflict, you end up creating silos. And when you create silos, you never scale.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's why we called this session Trust and Tension, because actually conflict is a sign of a healthy team. And it's often something we misunderstand, especially here in our culture, which is a culture of harmony and community, where we seek to minimize disagreement, right?
And I want just to be fair to everyone, it starts with me. So you just mentioned this point about the culture. I got to realize that I was creating this problem without knowing. So when I did my strength assessment, I did the Clifton strength assessment exercise, and I think harmony is my number 3. So, and I didn't know that. In hindsight, I fully agree. But by default, I am someone who solves for harmony and peace in general. I should run the world. But when you're a leader who is not aware of that thing, that you try to avoid conflict so that you create harmony, without realizing you inhibit the healthy dynamic of, no, guys, yeah, you're right, and you're right. Both of you can be right, and I need you to figure it out, and it's okay. We just need to agree on one thing and commit to it and move on. So when I spoke about trust, I was describing what we had, not saying it was someone's problem. One big thing we established. I remember how viscerally I rejected it when you and someone else who I work with told me, what's the common problem between all of these situations? And the answer was you as a leader. And I did not want to accept it. But in reality, that's one message also to anyone listening and who's committed or open to improving, really taking a step back and assessing what are the things that we do by default. It could be how we programmed, it could be how we define our value, it could be anything that are usually our strengths, but realizing how do they backfire innocently, but they have a serious impact on the way our people and our organizations execute. And just being aware and actively solving for them. You don't want to change. I remember I went to my coach once. I said, listen, these are my strengths. The company needs someone who's exactly the opposite of that. It's like, this is bullshit. The company needs you. You got to this point because of these strengths, but we need you to be the best when you're on the dark side of harmony or on the dark side of deliberation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is one of the people that usually, unofficially coaches me, Wissam, who was our speaker yesterday. He always reminds me that whatever I'm building can only grow as much as I'm willing to grow. And that all of my gifts come with a shadow side, just like kryptonite, it's it's Superman's superpower, but it's also his demise. And I think a lot of, when you get to a senior leadership level, a lot of your work is actually on this realization. And as you say, the integration of those things, because it's never about rejecting what got you here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the CEO, but it's about...
You cannot be someone you're not. That's also one thing to remember, is that there is no right or wrong way to lead. Every leader has their own way, strengths, weaknesses, and you just need to solve for those, not to try to be someone you're not. Another very boring example, whenever I try to be something else, it backfires.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I have a couple more questions to you on the team level. One from the audience, which is, what's the biggest shift that a leadership team needs to make to move from alignment on paper to real shared ownership in practice? Maybe what are some of the practical things that you've implemented as a team to really bring to life this shared ownership?
A very simple, again, sorry, there are no silver bullets today.
No, there are not.
It's so simple, it's embarrassing. When you have two functions that seemingly not compete, but fight. No, sales and marketing, sales and operations, right? Business unit and finance. The handshake between the two units, just ensuring that there's a deliberate and conscious commitment to sitting down and explicitly discussing handshakes and what can go wrong. And if it goes wrong, what's the solution? Just do that. If you have good people and they're committed to change, just let them do that and watch it happen 2 or 3 times, and then you will not have a problem.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I know we keep saying this. It's both the easy part and the hard part. What we need to do is always simple, but I think it's about the committing to doing the simple things well over time that is usually the hard part. And that's
when that happens. And again, we're super lucky to have amazing human beings at AstroLabs. When that happens and people realize that the other person is pushing or pushing back, not because they want to score a point against me, it's because they see something I don't, or let me actually see if there's something I can learn from that person. And when they win or I win, we're winning as a team, and we're happy to get to the outcome. Just, it happens organically. But if you don't, and if everyone is just going back to the golf versus team play, are you just solving for your swing? You just want your metric to be great, and you don't care how it affects the game of the team? Or are you obsessing about the end goal, that one strike, that we all need to play well together, and the pass need to be amazing and well timed and at the right velocity, so that the next player can hit it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, Lencioni's work is very helpful there. And in general, we always say great leadership teams operate as you say, like as A players in their functions, as great colleagues to one another. So the handshake, the collaboration, the co-creation at every level. And by the way, and you mentioned it earlier in our chat, not just at their level, but within their teams as well. Like the order of the day is to work together, and then they operate as a collective, like owning the final score, right?
Exactly. One more simple hint as an answer of how you can get the team together. We used to struggle a lot whenever there's a cross-functional stream of work. Cross-functional stream of work is it's a project that needs multiple people from different departments in order to happen. So the problem at AstroLabs 2 years ago is if it was in a department, in a unit, it gets done. The moment it requires two, it goes in limbo. As simple as it sounds, just implement a proper project management infrastructure and clear communication of why is this project important? Are we all in agreement to it? Are all the people assigned to it willing to do it, aware of the things, the responsibilities they need to do, the time? Don't leave a meeting without having an agreement with people on the next step, the ownership. When are we reconvening? It's so simple, but it works. Remember, because especially when you're in a fast-moving environment with people who can do things on their own, that superpower becomes the kryptonite when you need multiple people to work together. Yeah. And the only way to unlock it is just take simple stuff. I'm still very intolerant to complication and to systems, and I would suffocate if I smell bureaucracy. But there's a minimum infrastructure that you need in order to ship and get multiple people to produce work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And project management we are not born with that skill, but we can definitely learn it. I want to thank you for taking us through the story. I mean, I work with your leadership team and I love every single one of you. And I think it's incredible to see you all operate together, including how much commitment you have to the goal and how much everyone is willing to put that ahead of everything else. A question that we have from the audience, which kind of moves us into our last chapter, which we touched on, but is more focused on you as a leader. So the question from the audience member is, on a personal level, what was the hardest adjustment that you had to make to truly operate as a member of the leadership team and not as an individual leader yourself?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. And I was thinking about it when we were talking about the sports team and the evolution of the leader in that configuration, because early on, you're the superstar player. And then you're forming a team and you're still playing with them, but you have some coaching capability in the on the court. But then at the stage we're in, you're not anymore part of that team. You're the coach sitting outside on the bench. And the hardest decision is not to be part of the players and to commit to setting up the players to succeed and to watch the best scoring happen when you are not playing and consider it your win. That's the hard part, because everything you built is around playing. And now you're not a player anymore. You want them to play, you want them to win, and then their teams. And you do an amazing job when you're just influencing the game from the bench and even before the game. Like when the game happens, maybe you're not even in the stadium. So that's hard, but it's necessary.
That's a really great soundbite, honestly. And I echo that a lot. Being a builder myself, who had to make that evolution, I really resonate with that.
But I can tell you, it's a career moment when you see another player and your team win and score without you. It's a highlight. And the thrill you get from it makes it addictive. You just want to repeat it. And that's what makes the job now livable.
Absolutely. And I always, I took from Tala, her coach always uses this metaphor. I remember sharing it with you once, which is you are in the rowing boat, but you're not rowing. You're the coxswain. As you said, you're the coach. You're taking a new role. And that really requires a redefinition of who you are. Maybe, Roland, like one question again I have for any leader out there who is starting to feel the pull of that transition. What allowed you to be able to name this? Like, at what is the, of course, like I witnessed some of that transition for you personally. There was a group of people around you that kind of, allowed you to make that realization. What else was helpful for you to finally kind of say, oh, I know what this is and I know what I need to do? Because it doesn't come to us, immediately when we're transitioning to a new scale of our leadership.
I can't now think of an instance where I figured out, I had a big aha moment on my own. Here's the thing about the level of change that sometime you need to do. It is so deep that you can't see it. You just feel that there's something wrong, but you cannot name it. With all modesty, if I could name it, I would have acted on it. Because I'm always solving for improvement. But I got to a point where it was not working. I stopped loving what I do, but I could not say what is wrong. And the best you can do as a person is just say, they're letting me down. It's their problem. It's never your problem. So this is where you and other coaches were very helpful, just to help shed the light on what is the real problem. It's not a they problem as much as it is a you problem in this configuration. And then here, it's painful. Make no mistake. It's never easy. I tell that to anyone who comes to me for advice on self-improvement and development. And I tell them, listen, if a piece of feedback you're getting is not painful, like you feel it, you dread your life when you hear it, it's not deep enough. So you would be solving at the surface. Oh yeah, I'm a perfectionist, and when I'm a perfectionist, no, you're not a perfectionist. This is what we tell ourselves to feel good. You're someone who avoids conflict, and when you avoid conflict, you retrieve, and you're in your head, and because you're an overthinker, you overthink stuff, and you disconnect from people, and then you blame them because they don't know what's in your head. That's feedback. And then that, you name it, and then you say, you know what, okay, I am committed to change, and I know this is my dark side, and it's not going to happen again. And that's why my entire personal field of work has been, in the last 6 months, about clarity and candor. But I could not name it myself. I remember when you one told me it, I told you, so you have no idea what you're talking about. That's when you know that it's true. But you don't know. It's like, that's usually the indicator of, I always tell people, use your triggers. Whenever something triggers you, it is telling you, fix it. Fix here. You should look here. And the more painful the trigger is, the more likely it is that it's the right place to work if you are committed to improve.
Yeah, what a beautiful insight, honestly. It took me years to get to a place where actually it's when my response is the most violent and certain to something that I challenge myself. I'm like, you are so sure of what you're saying. Excellent. You must be wrong. And it's hard. And I really I really want to also say, like, I love what you said. You feel it. It's physical. It's painful. And we don't call it growing pains for nothing, right?
Yeah.
Growth doesn't happen without pain. When we train to have a bigger muscle, we first have to tear it, right?
Absolutely.
And all these metaphors ring true for our own personal development.
And as a leader, again, so I do it because it's my life commitment is to just constantly rebuild. Just because it keeps you humble and it keeps you alive. But you cannot, as a leader, tell the organization, we are a learning organization and we commit to change and to always improving, and you're not modeling it to the best extent possible. Otherwise, nobody will do it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Believe it or not, 55 minutes have passed. And typically at this point, I'll invite us to go to our lightning round. But maybe, Roland, what have you put in place for yourself today as the leader? You've already been true to that commitment. You've grown, you've learned a lot. There are so many transitions you told us about already, from harmony to clarity, from being a player to being the coach. And many more to come, I'm sure. If you were to tell a leader, like, what is the infrastructure that you put in place for yourself that just helps you to stay on course, what are maybe 3 things that you would name?
Not that I always consistently abide by them, but the combination of sleep, workout, and spiritual practice is one pillar. These rituals matter a lot. Find your rituals. They could be different for someone else, but I know that personal rituals matter a lot. That is one. 2, people you surround yourself with. It's very important to have around you people who, some of them keep you grounded, some of them keep you challenged, some of them keep making you uncomfortable. You need that board around you, and I am very lucky to have amazing people who deliver on all of those. And 3, keeping yourself in check. Because also I know that my default mode is to be in my head. I always try to get out of my head and validate anything I'm working on. These are my 3 blocks, if you will.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the last one really matters. I think when we name something, we find we have a lot of power over it. You said it earlier, like, you're like, if I knew what it was called, I would have fixed it. And that's really sometimes all we need. Just
I wish I knew.
Beautiful. And in some way, you've answered one of my lightning round questions, which is around what keeps you grounded. But maybe the second one is, what helps you to stay limitless? Like, whether both of us, our country is under insane amounts of pressure, our businesses, the GCC, like all the layers in which we operate are forcing us to retreat, right? And to just survive. But we know that remaining open to possibility, to imagination, to the future is also, what we need to carry. And what helps you to stay limitless?
I would say learning. Learning and knowing that, thankfully, I can rebuild myself and always learn and always get better. That's what keeps me limitless.
That's beautiful. Confidence doesn't come from knowing the solution. It comes from knowing that you will figure it out. I love that. What is a leadership quality from the Arab world that the rest of the world can learn from us?
I would say in the current context, it's resilience under ambiguity, or that instinct to operate when the world is literally collapsing and you don't freeze.
Absolutely. And then one last question is, based on our conversation, what are the top 3 things that you'd advise leaders to do if they want to learn from what you've been experiencing over the last 2 years in building an organization that has grown in scale, in resilience, and adaptability? What are 3 things that you would advise a leader to do right now?
So 1, look after yourself. You're of no use dead, or dead as in like burnt out or not present. So you need to be in good form mentally, physically, so that you can do the rest. Second, is use or don't let a crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity. It's hard when you're scrambling for survival, but we've done it before, many of us. And we always know that if you do things well in a crisis, you always emerge stronger, better. So actively think, what is that like? And solve for it. And 3, don't do it alone. Secure, build, be honest about, nurture, support your leadership team, but also surround yourself with the right advisors who can keep you grounded and challenged and help you deliver on all of that.
Beautiful. Thank you for the last bit of wisdom today. I think it's really great advice. And Roland, I also just want to genuinely thank you, because it's rare to have a leader that's willing in the service of others to tell the story so transparently and so authentically. And I think a lot of the people who listen to us today have a lot to learn. And I saw it in the comments. There was like, yes, agree, beautiful, ditto. Like a lot of people are resonating, because actually it's when we say things as they are that most people can be transformed by them. So I'm very grateful, and I know so is our audience.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, let's wrap this up for today. For anyone who joined us, as always, thank you for your attention and your questions and your feedback, and for learning with us. We appreciate you being here. The episode will be available, and I know this is an episode that's going to be rewatched and re-listened to. So you will have it on our website, on YouTube as a podcast. If you'd like to re-listen to this conversation or want to pass it along, the links will be available. If you did find value in today's session, all that we ask in return is a small contribution. You can donate to an organization. It doesn't even have to be in Lebanon, but I'm Lebanese and some of my team members are, so we've made a list for you and we'll share it in the links. Or if all you can do is donate a little bit of your time, similar to the question that Roland just answered around what people can learn from us, we have a survey about leading in the Arab world. It takes about 4 minutes. It would genuinely mean the world to us for you to complete it. We are continuing these conversations over the next week. Actually, today is the wrap up of our Adapt week. And as Roland said, never waste a good crisis. Next week, we'll be talking to leaders. We have CEOs, we have professors from INSEAD, community builders, about how you take what you learn in a crisis and you bring it back into the core of your business so that you develop competitive advantage. And our first session is with a superstar of INSEAD on Monday morning at 12, Prof. Claudia Zeisberger. She's a professor of entrepreneurship and family enterprise at INSEAD. And we're going to be talking about everything she's learned from her PE and turnaround management experience around how to lead when the crisis doesn't end. And we're going to explore how leaders can scenario plan, rethink their business models, make decisions under pressure, and balance the immediate survival with long-term positioning. Thank you again, everyone, for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session. He left.